What is going on, guys, and welcome to a new Support Invoker guide. Hopefully you guys do enjoy. This is mainly tailored for beginner players, so hopefully this is information that is very easy to digest and easier for you guys to understand on how to play Support Invoker, which in my opinion is quite underrated and should be picked up a lot more if you know the fundamentals of Invoker. I think Invoker is not a very beginner friendly hero, but if you are dabbling in Invoker and you do understand how to use the spells correctly, then you definitely can play Support Invoker and take him to a much higher level and get quite a lot of value from it. So the facet you guys are going to be using is Elitist, which basically gives lifesteal for Quas, move speed for Wex, spell amplification for Exhort, which I think is the best one. Agnostic is usually meant for core Invoker. You can also play Elitist with core Invoker, but I think this one is just much better because with Quas you're able to actually trade with the other enemy support or the enemy carry, and you're able to get some of that HP back, which is always going to be really nice for sustain, and Invoker does really need sustain. One of the things you guys need to learn about Support Invoker that is completely different from core Invoker is that you don't have the levels, so you will have a much longer cooldown when it comes to invoking your spells. So playing Quas Wex is going to be the best way you can play Support Invoker. Then I do recommend for you guys to play very passive when it comes to the early game. So pre-level 4, I'd say try and not burn your entire mana pool, because before you get yourself mana boots, you're going to have a lot of mana issues, so you're going to need to send yourself some clarities and some mangoes. That way you can sustain if you do plan on being quite active, because Tornado EMP with Cold Snap costs a lot of mana early on and you're not getting that mana back with EMP, so that can be a pretty big issue for you, so you need to keep that in mind. Your innate ability is Mastermind, which gives you 25% for every creep that is denied. This one is honestly one of the worst ones you can have, but it can be okay. But the problem with Support Invoker is you don't really have the best ability to actually deny creeps. You don't have a whole lot of base damage. You also just don't have the best right click speed to be able to actually contest heroes denying. You will get a deny here and there if you are focused on it, but I think it's just better to right click and harass, and maybe you might be able to get that odd deny and focus a little bit more on it, because your attack speed is really slow, so you're not going to be getting a whole ton of denies. Hence why I think this is much better for core Invoker, as you can get much more denies thanks to extra attack speed from Alacrity and your forward spirits. You're able to get much more denies, that way you can actually benefit from getting that XP. Now let's break down the best builds on Support Invoker. So typically you want to get mana boots all the time because you have a lot of mana issues. Before your EMP starts actually giving you extra mana, you will have a lot of mana issues, so that's going to come in later into the game. And you can also upgrade to Guardian Greaves, which is going to make you much more tankier and give auras to your team, which can always be really nice from the support line. Then you're going to go into Vessel, Solar Crest, and then maybe Force Staff or an Aghanim Scepter. I think Aghanim Scepter on Support Invoker is really good. Once you have your Exhort maxed and you have your support items ready, then you can definitely pick up the Aghanim Scepter. Even if there's not much setup, you can always get a lucky Sunstrike and get a kill, and even if it doesn't, you're still going to have really good damage when it comes to Cataclysm. So I do recommend the Aghanim Scepter for the late game, and obviously if you do have heroes like Faceless Void, Axe, then you can definitely pick up the Aghanim Scepter much earlier and get much more impact out of it and get the money out of that item. One of the lanes I do recommend for you guys to play is the Chaos Knight Invoker lane. I think it's such a really good lane. You have Cold Snap and he has his Chaos Bolt for stun, and he can also just pull into your EMP, so you're always going to be getting that EMP nice and ready. You're going to be burning their mana pool, and that is a pretty good combination. Heroes with stuns in general, you're going to be doing really good. Heroes like Dragon Knight are also really good pairings for Invoker. Kez is a pretty decent pairing because Kez has a lot of movement speed and he's able to move around the map very quickly, and you're able to keep up with him and help him set up with Tornado EMP. You can Alacrity him for extra damage, and Kez is a pretty good hero right now in the meta, so Invoker definitely benefits from playing with a hero like that, as well as Ursa with the Alacrity. Pretty much Invoker having Alacrity and Cold Snap and Tornado EMP plus your Deafening Blast, even your Ice Wall. You have so many spells at your disposal that you're always going to be a really good support. You just need to get through the laning phase, which I think is the hardest part about Support Invoker, as you don't offer a whole lot when it comes to actually supporting. Kind of just survive and leech XP until you're pretty much good to go, and then you can start roaming around the map. Once you have a few levels in Quas Wex, you can easily roam and get some kills here and there with your supports, with your Urn, and then you can actually start snowballing on the support. But other than that, you need to play a little bit more passive and try to have some clarities and mangoes, because you will be struggling with that mana early on, as well as keep your cooldown management in mind. This is what I mean by always have the spells that you're going to need ready, because the invoke cooldown is always going to be long in the early stages of the game. It only goes down by 0.3 per orb level, so it's actually not a lot. So it's going to be a while before you can actually just cast a lot of spells very quickly. quickly. So you need to keep that in mind. I would recommend having your Cold Snap and your Tornado ready. That way, when they're in the air, you can easily cast EMP and you're never going to miss it. That's the best way, because if you have to invoke Cold Snap, it's going to take much longer and you're going to miss the kill. And that's very important for you guys to understand, that your invoke cooldown early on is very, very slow. So keep that in mind when you are engaging into a team fight. Think about what spells you're going to need for that fight. If you're playing Quas Flex, it's pretty simple. You're going to need your Cold Snap, your Tornado, and your EMP to set up. And then whatever else you're going to need, you have the time to cast for it later, whether that's a Forge Spirit or a Sunstrike or an Ice Wall. Whatever you may need, you're going to have that extra time to actually cast it. But your main setup spells, you should always have them ready to go. That way, if something comes up, you're ready to go and you don't have to invoke an extra spell, because those 7 seconds early on, or 6 seconds or 5 seconds, is pretty much an eternity for you to cast that spell. It could be the difference of you missing the kill and them getting away, which can be really, really detrimental to your team sometimes, especially if you're trying to kill a high value player like a mid laner or an off laner or a carry player that's just being very pesky around the map. Having those cooldowns ready to go and knowing what spells to cast in what order are very important. So I do recommend practicing Invoker before bringing him to support. I think core Invoker is much easier to play than support Invoker, but once you guys get good at Invoker, you can play him from any position and you're going to have a really good time. But those of you who do play a lot of Invoker, you should be playing support Invoker. I think it is really underrated and very strong if you know what you're doing, and can be very, very much of a grief if you don't know how to play Invoker to play him from the support line. You need to be an Invoker player to actually play this hero and get value from it from the support line. Hopefully you guys did enjoy the video. If you guys did, leave a comment down below and let me know if you guys do play support Invoker, or if you guys think support Invoker is just a meme and only like playing core Invoker. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. I will see you guys in the next one. Thank you so much for watching.